Rebels from Tigray in the country's north have advanced closer towards the country's capital. They've been seen in the town of Kemise, about 300 kilometres from Addis Ababa. The African Union is also mediating between the government and rebel forces to withdraw troops and get humanitarian access into Tigray, where there's a crippling shortage of food and fuel. The UN says nearly 400,000 people are living in famine-like conditions, and the federal government is accused of blocking aid. We have correspondents monitoring developments at the UN and in Addis Ababa. Let's start with Mike Hanna at the United Nations. Mike, what have the UN said about the detention of their staff?
Well, the spokesman for the Secretary-General has been speaking to UN security personnel on the ground in Ethiopia, and he gave us these figures that 22 UN staff were originally arrested. 6 of these have subsequently been released, so 16 remain in detention. But we also understand that a number of dependents have been arrested as well. The exact number not really known. The UN is doing what it can at this stage, given the very poor communications, it appears, with Addis Ababa, to establish exactly what is happening. Some of those in detention have been visited by UN personnel. UN personnel in constant touch with the government, finding out exactly why these arrests were made. What is not clear as well is whether the UN itself was intentionally targeted or whether the arrests of these UN personnel were part of a wider range of arrests of people from the Tigray ethnic group. Now, that is a question that has been unanswered. But above all, as well, the UN deeply concerned about the humanitarian situation. There are still no humanitarian flights allowed into Ethiopia. This is now some 2.5 weeks where the last flight took place. They are finding ways in which these flights can resume and in which the steady flow of humanitarian aid can start going back into a country in which some 2.5 million people have been displaced.
Mike Hanna, thank you very much. Let's go live to Mohamed Ado in Addis Ababa. So what is the impact likely to be on efforts to get vital aid into Tigray?
Well, yes, that is being worked upon as we speak, Lauren. All these peace efforts, the first priority they want to achieve is to get aid to those who need it most. More than 400,000 people in the Tigray region who are living in famine-like situations. According to the UN, no aid has entered the Tigray region since mid-last month, and many people are trying very much to get this aid as quickly as possible. Olusegun Obasanjo, the African Union's envoy to the Horn of Africa, said that he will have a plan by the end of the week for negotiations, and the first thing he wants to see is a humanitarian corridor opened towards Tigray, and also for armed militias and defense forces taken as far away as possible from the main roads leading to Tigray. So it is still a work in progress.
And what is the latest on the diplomatic efforts to stop the war from escalating further?
Well, yes, that is going on, and there are parallel efforts. One of them is being led by the African Union, which seems to have been mandated by the international community to spearhead the efforts to try and find a negotiated settlement to these conflict, rather than it spreading over to other parts of the country and becoming some sort of civil war. Already the conflict has spilled over to the Amhara and Afar regions, where fighting has intensified in recent weeks. Olusegun Obasanjo has been to Mekele, where he has met with senior leaders of the Tigray People's Liberation Front. That was on Monday, and today he has been to visit the Amhara region and the Afar region. The Prime Minister tweeted earlier on today that his government was ready to work with friends, as he said, to try and overcome Ethiopia's temporary challenges. Jeffrey Feltman, the U.S. Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, has returned just days after leaving for neighboring Kenya. He is also spearheading a parallel effort in which the international community is trying to bring the parties together. But then one thing that has been an obstacle so far is that tag the Ethiopian government has given to the Tigray fighters, which is putting them in the list of terrorist organizations. That is one of the reasons why negotiations and dialogue between the two sides has not been possible until now. Whether the Ethiopian government is ready to remove that tag is still unknown.